I'm 32 and live in a small house in the countryside. That night felt completely normal. I'd been home all day, nothing strange at all. Around 9, I went upstairs, got ready for bed, and lay down watching YouTube on my phone. Then I heard something. I paused the video and listened. Faint voices, at least 2 people, maybe more, outside my window. They were whispering, like they didn't want to be heard. That's when my stomach dropped. No one should have been there. My house is far from any neighbor, no sidewalks, no reason for anyone to walk that close. Whoever they were, they knew exactly where they were going. I sat up in bed, trying to catch what the voices outside were saying, but they were too faint. Curiosity and fear mixed as I got up and walked to the window. The second I got close, the voices stopped. A chill ran down my spine. Whoever was out there could see me. I stared into the darkness covering my yard, but all I saw was black. My porch light barely touched the edge of the grass. I could feel eyes staring back. The thought alone made my stomach twist. I stepped away, hoping it was some accident, maybe someone got lost. But if that were true, why didn't they leave when they saw my house? Why did it sound like they were getting closer? I waited a few minutes, then looked again. Nothing. Just the kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. I went downstairs, checking every window, but there was nothing out there. No lights, no movement, nothing. The fear of not knowing where they were was worse than actually seeing them. After 30 minutes, I decided to open the front door. Maybe I was overreacting. I turned on the porch light and stepped outside. The air was cold, the only sound was crickets and wind. Beyond the light, the darkness was too deep to make out anything. But then I felt it. A heavy, awful sense that I was being watched. My eyes darted everywhere, but I couldn't see anyone. Still, I knew someone was there. My gut screamed to go back inside. I locked the door, double-checked every window, and stood there trying to calm down. Maybe it was just my imagination. I got a glass of water and went back upstairs. Eventually, I fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept before a loud crash jolted me awake. I jumped out of bed, heart racing, and ran to the door. The hallway was covered in shattered glass. Someone had thrown a rock through the back window. I froze, realizing what that meant. Then came the voices again. Closer, shouting to each other. And then the banging. Heavy, violent hits against the front door. Each slam shook the house. More glass broke somewhere else. I ran back into my room, locked the door, and called 911. While I was on the phone, the door downstairs crashed open. Multiple footsteps thundered through the house. I could hear them yelling, laughing, moving fast. The operator said police were 5 minutes away, but that felt like forever. I knew they'd reach my door soon. My only option was the window. The sloped roof outside wasn't safe, but staying wasn't either. I pushed the window open, crawled out, and climbed higher up the roof. The cold air hit me hard. I closed the window behind me and lay flat, trying not to make a sound. Then I heard them at my door. They pounded on it, yelling for me to open up, even using joking, mocking voices. It was sickening. A few more hits and the door gave in. Their footsteps filled the room. They searched, getting angrier when they couldn't find me. I pressed myself against the shingles, barely breathing. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then came the faint sound of sirens in the distance. The men started shouting to each other, their boots pounding down the stairs, and then, silence. They were gone. I stayed on that roof until the police arrived. When the flashing lights filled the yard, I finally climbed down. My legs shook so bad I could hardly stand. The officers searched the property, but the men had vanished into the dark. I was safe, but even standing there, surrounded by police, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still out there, somewhere in the fields, watching me. I still can't believe I made it out of that night alive. A whole group breaking into my house, miles from anyone else, in the dead of night. It doesn't even feel real when I think about it now. They didn't steal a thing. They didn't take money or valuables or anything that could make sense. Which makes it worse, because it means they weren't after stuff. They were after me. I'll never know why. Maybe it was random, maybe it wasn't. But the thought of those men standing outside, whispering under my window, knowing I was alone, that's something that still keeps me up some nights. My house was destroyed, but what they really took was my peace. Out here in the countryside, silence used to mean safety. Now it just feels like waiting for something to happen again. Last Halloween, I was supposed to go to a party with some friends. It was going to be a house party at a friend's place, but that morning the plans fell through. I'd already slept in, planning to stay up late, so when the party got canceled, I ended up spending the whole day alone at home. By evening, the neighborhood was quiet, trick-or-treat hours were long over, and I was tired from doing nothing all day. I grabbed a blanket, some snacks, and put on an old horror movie. My couch faced the TV, with the kitchen on one side and the front windows on the other. I always kept the curtains closed at night, but during the movie, I kept thinking I saw something move between the gaps. Every time I thought I saw movement behind the curtains, I'd look, and nothing was there. I'd tell myself it was my imagination and go back to the movie, until it happened again. After the 5th time, curiosity finally won. I got up, walked to the window, and pulled the curtains aside. I didn't expect to see anything, but then I froze. There was someone outside. Not right by the window, but standing in the street in front of my house. He looked like a grown man, maybe mid-30s, wearing a dark Halloween costume. He moved strangely, walking up the sidewalk, turning, then crossing the street again, like he didn't know where he was going. The way he staggered made me think he was drunk. I figured he'd just left some party and was trying to find his way home. It was 1 a.m. Harmless, I thought. Still, something about him felt off. I closed the curtains and went back to my movie, as the gap between the curtains always let a little light through, but this time, I didn't see any more movement. Whatever I'd been seeing before had stopped, which somehow made me more uneasy. 10 minutes later, I heard a knock at the door. I froze. My eyes darted toward it. It had to be that guy from outside, but why was he at my front door now? I stayed quiet, hoping he'd go away. Then came a second knock. Slow, deliberate. Against my better judgment, I got up to check. I peeked through the peephole. It was him. Same dark costume. But he wasn't stumbling anymore. He stood perfectly still, facing the door, not moving an inch. Even through the tiny lens, I could see his eyes, wide open, unblinking, locked on the door handle. A chill ran down my spine. 10 minutes ago, he looked drunk. Now, he was motionless, almost focused. It didn't make sense. The longer I watched, the clearer it became. This wasn't someone who'd had too much to drink. This was someone who meant to be here. I stepped back, every instinct screaming that something wasn't right. Should I call the police? Before I could decide, he turned and walked away down the street. Just like that. I stayed at the door, listening, waiting until he disappeared into the darkness. Maybe he really was drunk after all, I told myself. Trying to calm down, I sat back on the couch, poured a glass of wine, and tried to relax. The hours passed slowly, nothing happening. By 3 a.m, I was tired, but too on edge to sleep. Then, I heard it. A soft tapping sound from the other end of the house. I muted the TV. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't loud, but it was steady. Slow, deliberate. My stomach turned. I got up and walked toward the noise, each step quieter than the last. It sounded like it was coming from one of the back rooms. I moved down the hallway and into the family room, my pulse pounding so hard I could hear it. My eyes followed the sound to the far window. That's when I saw it. The faint outline of a man's shadow, standing right behind the glass, tapping something slowly against it. The porch light didn't reach that side of the house, so I couldn't see his face, but I knew. It was him. I bolted back to the living room and grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking as I called 911. While I was on the phone, the tapping didn't stop. The operator kept asking questions, but all I could focus on was that sound. Slow, rhythmic, just on the other side of the wall. Tap, tap, tap. My voice cracked as I told them someone was outside, that it was the same man from before. The dispatcher said officers were on their way. I hung up and crept back down the hall, needing to see if he was still there. When I reached the family room, the tapping had stopped. The man was still there, though. I could barely make out his shape, tall, motionless, staring in through the window. Then, as if he realized I was watching, he turned his head slightly. Even through the dark, I could feel him looking right at me. A second later, he walked away, fading into the night. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. They searched the area and found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, nothing but a faint smudge on the glass where he'd been standing. I gave them a full description, the black costume, the pale face, the wide eyes. They nodded, took notes, and said they'd patrol the neighborhood for the rest of the night. I thanked them, but deep down, I knew whoever he was, he hadn't just been wandering around. He'd come here for a reason. Unfortunately, the police never found him. 2 weeks later, another report came in from a couple streets away. Someone had called saying a strange man was stalking their home, standing outside at night, moving in that same slow, deliberate way. It had to be him. Same description, same eerie behavior. But what he wanted, or what he's still out there trying to do, no one really knows. Sometimes, I still think about that night. The knock on my door. His eyes through the peephole, the way he stood there waiting for me to open it. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had. Would I even be here telling this story? What do you think he was planning, and what would you have done if you were in my place that night? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. I got home from work around 9:30 that night, made a quick bowl of cereal for dinner, and went straight to my room to game. My setup was ready and I planned to stay up late with the boys, but they were running late. So I started playing alone while waiting. In the middle of a match, my phone rang. I thought it was one of them, but it was an unknown number. I ignored it. A few minutes later, it rang again. Same number. I found it strange right away. Scam calls usually don't ring back to back from the same number. But this one did. 3 times in a row. By the third call, I was sure it wasn't spam. Maybe a friend using another phone or someone who needed help. I picked up, but didn't say anything at first, waiting for whoever it was to speak. There was silence. Then I said, "Hello?" Still nothing. But I could hear faint wind on the other end, the kind of sound you hear when someone's outside. That's when I realized someone was there, just not talking. After about 15 seconds, I hung up, feeling that uneasy chill crawl up my neck. A few minutes later, my friends finally got online. The first thing I asked was who had been messing with me. They joked around for a second, but I could tell they genuinely had no idea what I was talking about. They thought maybe it was a prank call, but even that didn't make sense. Who pranks someone by just calling and breathing into the phone? We shrugged it off and started gaming. Strangely enough, once I was on call with my friends, the number stopped calling. Hours passed and the whole thing left my mind. Around 2 in the morning, we decided to call it a night. I hung up the chat, took off my headset, and sat there for a moment just scrolling through my phone. Then it buzzed. A new text. I looked down. Same number, and it wasn't a message, it was a picture. My chest tightened. Without even opening it, I could see the preview. It was dark, blurry, but familiar. I opened it fully, and my blood ran cold. It was a picture of me, sitting at my desk gaming, taken from right behind me, just seconds ago. I spun around, heart pounding. No one was there. My room was empty. The only small comfort I felt was seeing the window nearby and realizing maybe, just maybe, it was taken from outside. I rushed over and looked out, scanning the yard. Nothing, just darkness. So I locked the window and pulled the blinds shut. My hands were shaking. I stared at the photo again, every muscle in my body tight. This wasn't some random spammer. Someone had been right there, close enough to take that picture. I saved the image and sent it to my group chat, praying it was one of my friends pulling a joke. But this time, they didn't laugh. Their messages came in fast. "That's not funny. Dude, get out of there. Call the cops right now." My pulse started racing. I opened my bedroom door slowly, peering down the hall. The house was silent. For some reason, I felt this need to check to make sure the rest of the house was still locked up, like part of me needed proof I was safe. I crept down the hallway, my phone light cutting a path through the dark. When I reached the corner, I froze. The front door was wide open. My stomach dropped. I didn't hear it open, didn't feel a breeze. It was just open. Something deep inside me knew I wasn't alone. My body reacted before my mind did. I sprinted back to my room, slammed the door, and locked it. A second later, I heard footsteps in the hall. Slow. Heavy. Each step got closer until they stopped right outside my door. Then came the knock. Soft at first, then again louder, the doorknob started to move. Slowly twisting like someone was testing it. He knocked 2 more times. Never said a word. Just silence. I grabbed my phone and called 911, whispering into it as quietly as I could. The dispatcher told me officers were on their way. The entire thing lasted maybe 30 seconds, but it felt endless. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The footsteps backed away. Whoever he was, left. When the police arrived, they searched the house and the yard, but found nothing. The number he called and texted from was a burner, no name, no trace. I never saw his face, never heard his voice. Just the sound of his steps, the photo on my phone, and the memory of knowing that, for a few minutes that night, someone had been standing right behind me, watching. Even now, I still get paranoid sometimes. Late at night, when the house gets too quiet, I catch myself glancing at the window or checking the locks one more time. Because honestly, what's stopping him from coming back? From standing out there again? From doing something even worse? It's the kind of thought that doesn't leave you. Once you've seen what real fear looks like, it stays with you. I still wonder who he was, what he wanted, and why me. But maybe that's the scariest part, not knowing. Have you ever had a night where something just didn't feel right? When your instincts told you someone was watching? What did you do? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you love true stories that send chills down your spine, don't miss the next one waiting for you right here.